Welcome to the Construction Brothers Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Campbell, and with me, like you say every week, my brother, Eddie Campbell.
What's up, Tyler?
Not much, Eddie. Well, this week, the 2x4 of the future. Eddie, all right, so we got to talk about it, man.
I don't want to talk about it.
No, we got to talk about it. All right, so let me set the stage.
Okay.
So it was Eddie's daughter's birthday.
Yeah.
Fantastic day. What, the spaghetti and cake and ice cream. Eddie loves his ice cream. We know this,
Yep.
right? So we're all very excited to be over at Eddie and Christie's. And well, I look over on the table and there's these like little, you know, those little squishable things, John. You know, like those little squishy like sticky things or whatever. Like they look like dumplings.
They were dumplings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got the bright idea that I'm going to throw it at the ceiling to see if it sticks. Lo and behold, it does. All right. So a game starts. Yes, a game starts.
Yes,
naturally.
it did. Who can make it stick to the ceiling the longest?
So we start throwing the dumplings at the ceiling as hard as we possibly can.
In the nice little dining area.
It's a very nice little dining area. Right up into the point that Eddie's dumpling releases from the ceiling, comes down and hits the pendant light over the table, and the whole bowl around the pendant light just shatters down on the table.
Hitting our dad.
Making
him bleed.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
I
no.
was so happy. I stepped back. I was like, what? It was amazing, dude.
As uncomfortable as I am with the fact that this story is just very incriminating to me.
Yes.
You goofed it, man. You messed it up. It's better than what you just told.
What do you mean?
You didn't get the whole part. Like, okay, Jay looked at me, my son, looked at me and said something snarky about the dumpling sticking to my bald head. And I was like,
I had that thought later.
No. We went back and forth on that a second. And I was like, look, it won't. So the way the dumpling actually hit the lens of the chandelier was I actually dunked it on my head. Yes, I threw it on the top of my bald head to prove that it would not stick. And it bounced randomly off, hit the lens falls on the table breaks the thing, and then it cuts Dad. And I'm just sitting there like, well, I hadn't done that in a while.
Best part of this story by far is that our wives don't even come to check.
No, it's just
they're just like, yeah, it's just life.
I figured they weren't even in the room when you started telling this story.
yeah, they were in the other room.
They were over in the other dining room. And,
they could hear though.
Oh, they could hear the shenanigans. I think when they heard the crashing, they were like, sure, yep, that's about right.
I have a line at the house though, and it's just it's just me, and that could cover anything, like any peril. What's the guy at Allstate? You know, I don't know if we can say his name out loud here, but the Allstate advertisement.
Yeah.
What's that guy's name? Gosh.
You mean State Farm?
No, Allstate guy.
Allstate guy.
Yeah. The guy that always gets beat up.
Mayhem guy.
Mayhem.
Yeah, that's the guy.
That's the guy. Yeah. So any mayhem that happens at the Campbell house, I'm just like, it's just me. It's just me.
See, I go the opposite way. I go Rocket Man. If you were a Disney kid.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. Wasn't me. I just yelled that.
It wasn't you.
Yeah, Dad actually got on to me for that at one point. He was like, you need to stop saying that. It's a lie. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
it wasn't me. I'm just kidding. Okay. Oh, John, dude, thanks for joining us this week, dealing with our shenanigans. So, dude, tell us about what you're up to. It's Lauda Cube. Yes, it's proper.
Proper. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us all about it. What are you doing? This new, I'm going to say in quotes, 2x4.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if I can't top the dumpling story, but we'll transition into something else. But yeah, so we've actually been around for around 10 years. Lauda Cube is a building tech company, and like you said, Tyler, the official pronunciation is Lauda because it's a Swedish word, but we don't expect anybody to pronounce it that way, so we just refer to it as Lauda Cube.
But I will. I 100% will.
I think you should. I think you should really Exaggerate
The Lauda Cube.
That was German. What?
I don't know what happened there.
Shut up and let the man talk. Anyway, John.
There we go. Here, you're up.
Yeah, so we're a building tech company. So we've essentially invented a digital building platform that we commonly refer to as the 2x4 of the future. And a lot of unique features within that is just, looking at efficiencies within construction, looking at volume production abilities, and then eventually, I think over time, bringing cost of construction down significantly.
So, all right, explain to us, because, all right, outside looking in, when I first saw you guys, I was like, all right, standard wall panel, right? I was thinking like metal stud. We see a lot of that.
Right.
On further inspection, and after talking to you a couple times, that is not the case. So can you explain to us how everything connects, kind of paint a visual picture for us if you can?
Yeah, so what we do is we make essentially 8 sizes of cassettes, we call them. So they're basically like panelized construction. The unique thing about the cassettes is they're all pre-formed in terms of their components and the way that they assemble together, which is similar in some ways to cold roll form steel, stud wall, panelized wall, but really more digitized and more refined. And so what you get is the standardized system that allows you to build virtually any floor plan, but you've basically created these refined efficiencies within production now of construction, and then that translates into, instead of constructing, you're doing more of an assembly. So we commonly refer to that, to the system as a whole as we call it productization of construction, which I'm sure you guys have heard that term. But we have a lot of, when you look at BIM and a lot of systems that, are being created or are created, the systems are always trying to pull out efficiencies and consistencies in construction. But they're really, I think the missing link historically has been, there really hasn't been a fully digital system that matches a lot of that software. And so we feel like, with Låda Cube, we're able to come in with this, predetermined system that has a set of rules on how it constructs. And the unique thing in that is we can take minimally skilled labor and they can really build structure efficiently and quickly. And so we're seeing a lot of speed to build, a lot of sustainability on the reusability side, and so all these inherent benefits of this digital system.
So we had talked to you on the reusable side.
Yeah.
We had talked about you're working with a company where you're doing a bunch of different centers across the states. Like, you actually deconstructed one of those wall systems and were able to reconstruct it over in another area. Walk us through, because that was the case of reusability, right? Is that specific job?
Yeah, that's and I think that's that category of productization. For the first time ever, historically construction's has been an asset, but it's a very fixed asset, right? And beyond its initial use, initial construction, that asset really has, once you want to reconfigure a space, that the value basically is fully diminished. And so our model is saying, well, how do you take construction and turn it into a product where it has, basically kind of like, we call them like the 3 R's. So it's like reconfigurability, relocation, or resell. The nice thing in that model is you have really high level transparency on the costing side, because every component has a fixed price, and that price really never changes. I mean, historically it's coming down as volume increases of production, but it's really this new category of transparency, this new category of sustainability and reusability. And we don't expect that all of our customers will reuse the product, because that's not always the thought process going into a project. They're thinking more permanency, but it does have those characteristics, built into the product. And so studies say that typically when a company builds out, a building or structure, even a homeowner, we see this a lot, right? There usually is about 20% on average of that project that once they get into the space, they wish they would have done it differently. And I'm sure you guys with your history in construction have seen that. Sometimes that comes through change orders, maybe even before the project is finished. And so, I think for the first time in history, in some ways, I feel like, I don't want to overstate it, but we're able to take construction and really have an inherent value that goes beyond the initial build.
This reminds me of almost like steel case partitions or something of this nature. Only maybe, you don't get that kind of like, that's not permanent. That's just kind of sitting in the room. Like, no, you're looking at a wall. The wall is there. But in the same way that's kind of like demountable, in the same way it's a kind of a system of parts, it can be moved, it could be transferred to a new office. These walls can be transferred to a new office. And I'm trying to get that picture well painted because I know we'll put some things on the YouTube version of this, but I just want to paint the picture of like that wall system, the 2x4 of the future, and these panels locking into that so that they can be kind of unlocked later. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I could actually show you. I have a sample right here.
Let's do it.
Yeah, man.
So this is what we call our tabletop sample. So
that's a legitimate sample. Well done. You built a wall just for us. Oh my gosh.
You see a couple things, right? There's unique assembly so that as it's being assembled in the factory, it literally is designed in a way, engineered in a way that you literally can't mess it up as you build it. So it only goes together one way. So you're looking at this is basically two 12-inch cassettes. So that's one of our 8 sizes. And then the uniqueness of it is our internal cam locks, which basically allow you to lock and unlock walls. And they have about 750 pounds of holding power per cam lock. And so you'll see, and this is pretty robust, but you'll see I literally unlocked that wall.
Okay, so this and for those listening, so this reminds me of those little screw things that they've been putting in like furniture lately.
The cam lock.
It's the cam lock. Yeah, so you just screw it into place like that. That's okay. Just relating that back to something that most everybody has dealt with. If you haven't seen this.
If you've been to IKEA.
If you've been to IKEA, you have seen a cam lock.
only better.
Only this is a lot better.
And here's kind of how the skins finish, and there's so many different options that they're almost limitless, but you literally just are popping a panel on, it hangs, and then it has lockers at the top.
Is that the French cleat that you guys have implemented there too?
It is one of our 2 systems, for hanging skins.
I know this is so silly, but that was the biggest thing for me. Whenever you showed me a picture of that, I went, wait, hold on a second. You can take the finish off of this thing without like taking I guess it screws at the top, right?
Yeah, so there's safety lockers on the top, for seismic or just safety in general. But
I was nerding out about that too because you just go over and you just slide it right into place and you've got a finished wall. It's just that I don't know. I just thought it was just a simple solution for something that you were talking about wet walls, right? That's where that was kind of being used a lot.
Yeah, so we've kind of brought in a lot of different solutions into the system. So one being a wet wall cassette that is a standard 24-inch cassette, but it's hollowed out, so it allows third-party contractor plumbers to come in and basically plumb that wall out for different applications. So yeah, we have a lot of these little unique, we call them accessories, that can be added or subtracted from any cassette. So a general cassette, like you just saw, is what we call a blank cassette. And that blank it has the technology for what we call reverse compatibility, meaning that you can add different pieces of technology to that. So like you can add digital blocking at multiple locations for anchoring. So if you want to do heavy objects like countertops, sinks, cabinets, we have plug and play electrical systems that can be added to the walls, removed over time, data lines. And so the uniqueness in that is like, if you have a wall that's a blank, there's so many different features and things you can do to that cassette. And we really structured that in a way that, we take the standard, basically 2x4, I would say, of the future, right? The standard platform. And the vision behind Lauda Cube is that standard platform of that blank cassette, over time, it doesn't change, but it has a lot of flexibility built into the structure. It basically allows us to add different technologies. And so in essence, it never goes obsolete. So you don't have a customer calling you 5 or 10 years from now saying, hey, we want to do this or that, and you don't say, well, sorry, what version you have? We don't make that one anymore. And so really trying to create that standard in that building category that is future forward, but allows for new technologies to be added or subtracted.
How do you feel about the comparison to Lego?
I love it.
It's so accurate, though. Like, I mean, Lego's had the same design since, whenever it came out. I can't remember. But it's had the same design for years and years and years. And so, yeah, I mean, I can pick up blocks from the 80s and implement them with blocks that, just got made, and everything works together. But no, it's hilarious because we've had conversations about, building components being like Lego. And it's just,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Even a whole episode on that.
Yeah, a whole episode on that.
I listened to that episode, I think it was a year or two ago. And so it's serendipitous that we're sitting here talking, because I was like, I want to be the guy that talks about that actual solution. So
I want to let's go, man. All right.
Let's go.
It's on now. Okay. So we care about, time to market, the cost of something to build, and the quality that we have when it's there. And so I'm wondering, okay, so I see what seems apparent in this system, or a DFMA system or modular system or something like this. We're arguing for a speed to market. I'm gonna be able to plug these in, and that should go fast. So is that accurate here? What's the comparison in the speed of, I'm going to go out and hack together a 2x4 wall or even a light gauge wall with JIP, and what you're putting together?
Yeah, so one of our contracts that we have is we build out all of Walmart's new vision centers and optometry doctors' offices. So it's been a great contract for us for many reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is it's really given us a consistent model to really flush out some of those case studies on speed and efficiency and costing. And so what we see across the board is it's about a quarter of the time that it was taking them to stick build these structures. So we can build out the Lauda Cube structures in a quarter of the time versus stick build. So we would take a project that would be a 16-day project, and we can build that out in 3 days. We can take a 30-day project and we can do that in usually 5 to 7 days. Those case studies have been, invaluable, just from the standpoint of being able to understand, are the things that we're promoting and saying about the product, can we actually back them up? Are we actually seeing those results in the field? And so, so I think one other, huge benefit of that is that we're able to bring minimally skilled labor onto these sites. And essentially, they've never touched a product in their life, and within half an hour, we can have them building structure, which is kind of unheard of, right? And you guys know, because you're, Tyler, especially just a highly skilled builder. You can't just bring Joe Schmo off the street and have to start building stuff.
Eddie's really enjoying the fact that you said that I was the highly skilled builder, which I am. Thank you very much.
I totally flipped that. I'm so sorry.
That's rich.
You're coming back, John. It's done. It's done.
What a suck up! I swear.
I totally flipped that.
I love it, man. Well, okay, so even a Tyler can build these. So we've established that. And okay, so I would expect to have to pay a whole lot more to be able to do that thing. I get speed to market, that has value. So, but I would expect, you're doing more on the back end. There's a system of parts. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, where we sit today, it definitely is more of a premium product, and that there's a couple factors that play into that. One of them being scalability and volume. And so where we sit today, we're roughly, we usually price it out by linear footage, the footprint of the wall. So we're at 450 linear foot today. Our goal is 250, and we think we can even get it under 2 eventually. So what that equates to from a square footage standpoint, where we sit today, is about $180 to $200 a square foot. But yeah, those economies of scale over time, especially with the efficiencies of manufacturing and digitization, are really going to continue to bring those costs down over time. And I think that's one of the most exciting things, because you guys know when you look at construction, it's one of wholly, and it's changing, but it's wholly one of the most inefficient top 5 industries in the world. Never really had a significant, enough technological revolution to really bring the costs down historically, or even steady them over time. So yeah, we feel like that's just a huge category where there's tons of opportunity to really come in and say, how do we take our digital software systems and how do we actually match it with a building system that also really complements that software side?
So the digital side, dig into that. What are you doing on, I guess, just the design side to help facilitate the usage of these in new structures?
So we're kind of just scratching the surface. So I'll tell you where we're at today, and I'll tell you kind of where we're going. So the biggest benefits that we have today are a couple things. So we have, on a lot of highly repeatable conditions, what we tend to do with customers is that we tend to basically kit those pieces out. Because on early projects with some of our customers, we would go on site and the architect of record would basically send us the floor plans. We'd design based on those plans. We'd go on site with executives to review those projects after they were completed. And the biggest thing that we saw in errors, we call them opportunities, were that they would say, why is this outlet here? It's not supposed to be here, those types of things. And so just understanding, the architect's role and sometimes the challenges of repeatability on projects and maybe not catching every little detail because there's just so many. Being able for us to say, hey, those are highly repeatable conditions. Let us kit those out and you won't have to redraw them every time. We'll essentially draft them up and plug them in. So we call them plugins. And so since we've done that on those projects, we see literally 0 errors in locations of MEP. And so that's been really cool to see. So that's kind of like the beginning pieces. But the other side is where we sit today, we can basically take a project and we can bid it out in usually 2 to 4 hours and give a customer what we call a phase 1 drawing. And that basically gives them the initial costing of what that project would look like using Lauda Cube. So we call it a lotification. So we basically take, it can be a DWG or a PDF or, or it can be on a napkin. And we basically lotify that and can get them to costing fairly quickly. The categories that we're starting to develop out even further are more of what we call like the generative design or computational design side, to where we get to a place, and we're kind of doing this on a couple platforms, Rhino being one of them is kind of the baseline platform where we get to be creative and start to generate some of these systems where a customer can literally either drag a line or drag out a box and it'll auto-populate with the optimal sizes that fit the Lauda Cube system. And then literally from there, that data is basically providing, costing, bill of materials, and also, invoicing that can go directly right into production. So those pieces we believe will start to be offered to architects initially, so we can basically go through a process of just getting their feedback and making sure the system works, well for them. And it'll probably be in the form of like a Revit plugin. But eventually it'll be customer facing where, anybody could go on there and basically draw out their floor plan and then basically essentially get full visualization of the product as they want to build it, and then also get costing and literally make an order through that process. And we want to attach financing to that as well at some point.
Well, you need that when you're presenting an alternate option. You have to have that, right? You need somebody in real time to be able to get how much more am I going to spend on this thing? That's one of the immediate questions, right?
Yep. And that's what I think, is unique about the system over time is just the level of transparency. I think is going to be kind of next level. And I get it, like being a general contractor is a tremendous amount of work. It's like running like 5 businesses within one. So Tyler has no understanding of that, but I know Eddie, you do. So now I'm kissing
That's
nice. I messed up before.
You're coming back, man. I'll tell you, right?
Sorry.
That's awesome.
But really, I think every single project we do, the level of pricing transparency is kind of, I think it's next level, and that's me talking. But what we do with our bigger customers is we have what are called articles. And those articles literally list the cassette size and say, this is the fixed price on that product. And so when we bid projects, there's never, ever, ever a change in price unless there's a change order on like the layout of a floor. When we say like, this is the costing, it literally passes through the whole project and never changes. And you guys know, because lumber and everything has been fluctuating so much, and one day you're paying this and the next day you're paying this. And so we really pride ourselves in that price transparency. There's some pieces, and I know this is kind of sometimes an overused word, but we really see a model too for what I would call democratization of construction, to really, in a way, like free the people to either build or free them to have understanding of what that process fully looks like, and then what that costing is across the board. So I think those are, unique categories where we're going to start to see, some big wins for us as a company, especially as we start to continue to bring the costings down through volume.
So I want to go back to, we looked at the time and then, we kind of talked through the cost. And so what about the quality? Do I have to have a wall with seams in it? What can I expect to see when I get the wall there?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's where it sits today. We have our main skin finish right now that we use across the board on a lot of projects. And it's not the only one that we have, but it's basically it's a MDF. It's a 1/2-inch MDF, fire-rated, fire-treated board. It has a lot of similar properties through testing as drywall from the standpoint of repairability, which is great, paintability. But you do have those seams, and they are, in some ways, they're purpose-built, right? So, but for some people, it's kind of throws them off. They're not used to that. So we have brought on a few other products and materials, one of them being a material called Avenite. That's like a Corian skin, and you can actually fuse the seams together. So we're always looking at different options. I think the long-term play for us is a couple categories. So we believe strongly in open sourcing our skin files so that customers can source stuff more regionally and closer to where they live or where the project is. But then that also gives the creatives more opportunity to choose different materials within the dimensional requirements of what the skins need to be from a thickness standpoint primarily. But I think the creatives over time and contractors, whoever that is, they're going to be the ones that over time are going to really start to flush out the uniqueness of the different options of what could possibly be used as a skin. But on the other side, I think one of my dreams would be, to work with like a US Gypsum or a company like that to really create a Lauda Cube type skin that has a seam that can be finished quickly and efficiently, but has almost like a rubberized component to it or material to it. So over time, when you want to disassemble the structure, you can. But then if you want to kind of do it in a seamless approach from a aesthetic standpoint, you also have that option.
Yeah, that's it's funny because we're actually getting ready we're going to build some set walls here. And I've been thinking about the seam aspect of this too, because we were going to use just like simple, like 1/8-inch, Luan or something like that, and butt those things up. I got to make sure that I get a nice, neat line on those things. So yeah, that's definitely a valid point of this. So I want to get into the demountable stuff real quick though, because we glazed over that. Now I don't know if you're willing, but you shared with me some numbers on you guys demounted and then put it back together, and it was one of those eye centers, right?
Yeah, I think it was vision and optometry together. Yeah.
So, could you break that down for us? Is that cool? I don't know if you're under NDA or anything.
We'll find out. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
No, I think it's water under the bridge. But
if the whole thing's bleeped, then we know. Yeah.
We get a call.
We get a call.
Yeah, so not hypothetical, but an actual case study, right? Is building out a fairly large structure. That the initial build-out cost was $261K, I think, in totality, plus some change. Within that project, there was, when you look at the time frames of the time to build that structure, I think it was actually a 4-day installation with a crew of 8. So you have that speed, right, all those factors. We actually thought it would take longer for us to build. And so you'll love this, Eddie, because I think I told Tyler, but within that project, we did it so fast. We went back to the company and said, hey, we need to give you a $31,000 refund on the installation cost. They didn't know how to process it. So it ended up going through multiple departments, I think 5. And they're like, hey, do you know how to do this? And so eventually they got the refund. But then a year later, that project was taken out. And it took 13 hours with a crew of 4. So they disassembled everything in 13 hours, packaged everything, shipped it back to our factory. Then at a later date, that same project was deployed again. And at the rate of reusing roughly 75% of the skins, because you do have some damages and some skins that are slightly customized because they go against the stick-built wall. That same project redeployed was $45,015, I believe. That's what we see kind of across the chain is roughly an 80% savings on second-time use of the same product. So that's the beauty in the model. I have a few customers. They're wonderful. they don't want to own the walls. And, and I've been very transparent about this, but we end up selling them the same wall over and over again. And they're fine with that. Some other customers see the model and say, oh, wait, we can actually have some long-term value here when you look at the productization, and we can reconfigure this, we can relocate it, or eventually, sell it. And I do believe at some point in history, there will be a significant like third-party market where there'll be exchanges with products like ours, where you'll be able to go on there and say, you know what, I need 4 of these and 3 of these. And, so when you look at that sustainability model, the goal for us is that, none of our product ever goes in a landfill. So whether that's through the full reusability of the product over time or refurbishment, we'd like to eventually have a buyback program, or the last category, which is just fully recycling the whole structure.
That is insanely cool.
Yeah. So, all right. Now, if we were to do this stick built, because you calculated that out, right? So it was $260K for the first install, and then it was $45 to move it. Whereas the stick built, just for one of those, I could be butchering. It was like 180 or something like that.
I think 180 for that project, 183 somewhere in that. Yeah.
So I mean, that's $100,000.
Yeah.
Because if you're stick building it twice, yeah, and that's substantial in the reusability equation.
Yeah. For clarity too, that 45 on the second time, majority of those fees were engineering and architectural fees, like the majority of that, and then skins. There were 0 fees for cassettes, plug and play electrical, data lines that were already basically consumed through, inventory from that project.
Can you implement, like, I would imagine you'd be able to. So like, let's say you take one of those cassettes out and you say, all right, well, this is going to be reused over in this other area. You can then put electrical back into it, or plumbing. Like it's flexible in that capacity.
It is, yeah. So that's that reverse compatibility where at any point you can add those accessories to any cassette. And then, I was going to say one other thing. I just lost it. But yeah, so there is that flexibility within the structure. Oh, what I was going to tell you is the other thing is, I really honor the trades. I have so much respect for builders. So within that, we really also created this system that those trades can also integrate with the product. So you don't have to use our plug and play electrical. You can bring in your own electrician and you can wire stuff traditionally. You don't have to, use some of our other accessories, our skins. Like, you can cut your own. It's a CNC file, but you can basically have all those sourced on your own. It was really important for me that we didn't alienate an entire industry. Same with doors and windows. So there's 2 formats that we do for doors and windows. One format is we basically put furring strips into our side rails. That allows any door or window off the shelf to be integrated into our system. What we're starting to also transition to, though, is we're starting to get some of the manufacturers to put our cam pins in the door frames. And the beauty in that is you can install a door, for example, with no shimming and no screws. And because the system is a digital system, everything, the tolerances are so fine on the system, it's beyond traditional construction. Everything is within 0.15 of an inch tolerance. So when you have that clean of a system from a tolerance standpoint, you can basically take a door frame with pins, you can pop it into the rails, and you can literally lock everything together, and it literally pulls it right into alignment. And so like we have Herman Miller, which is now Miller Knoll, I believe. They put a lot of their cabinets and sinks into our products, especially on the optometry side. I remember after the first couple installations, they came back and said, we've never put our stuff on a truer wall. And they really enjoyed it, right? Because like usually you got to shim and level and solve for, curvatures or unevenness. So there's just like, it really speeds up a lot of the trades down the line as well, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was intrigued because I'm thinking about with the quality thing, what about what's sitting there before you get there? Because you can control your system, but you can't control how the slab was poured before you got there. So how much of a struggle is matching tolerances?
It is, and we've also, created solutions around a lot of that. There's 2 formats that I'll tell you about. So one of the formats is, the foundation is the key to everything, right? So what we do is we have a whole process where on day 1 of the build, we send a team in with laser levels, and they basically level out the structure from understanding the highs and the lows within the floor of the parameters of whatever is being built. And once they do that, we actually have a form that's digital, and it doesn't always work for everyone, but you can actually handwrite it out, but it's easier if it's digital. But that form, literally we do our pinpoints for our floor anchors, and every pinpoint, it's every 2 feet on a sill plate. So those floor anchor pinpoints get entered into the database, into this form. And that form has already calibrated the highs and the lows because you put those into the equation. And then you take a laser measure stick, and the laser line hits it, and you can do the readings at each of those locations. And those readings get numbered, and they also get put into that document. And what it does is it literally spits out how much you need to shim each of those locations. And so those floor brackets get shimmed appropriately, and then from there they get anchored into the ground, and then you're just laying your sill plates down and anchoring those in, and then popping cassettes and locking them. So that's one category. And then the other category is we have a specialized bracket that can build against traditional stick-built walls, and it has a lot of variability to it. So when you put a cassette into it, it can flex in a lot of different ways to make sure our cassette's level, even if this wall isn't.
We've done something similar with like laser scanning, where we go do the FFFL.
Yeah.
Right. And so you get the high-low of a given slab, but then that's always just chuck it back over the fence and fix. Yeah, who's going to fix this? Not we'll be able to adjust to it.
Right.
And it's one of the arguments, and I think we even mentioned this in that like Lego episode that you referenced, is will construction tolerances now need to change? Will our logic need to change? Will our thinking need to change? I think we even explored like stick built only covenants, or mandates that municipalities, they have adopted because stick built means it's quality built. It means I'm not getting a trailer.
Yeah.
And so our mindset of everything modular and our mindset of all of the tolerances as we build together will have to evolve a little bit. But we also have to build in those tolerances to understand that we're not going to get perfection in the field. It's not going to happen. So I respect it. I like it.
Yeah, I think the shim thing, I mean, that's pretty cool, man. I forgot to ask you about that last time. So yeah, I'm glad we brought this idiot along with us on the ride to really help us unpack that.
Thanks, Ty.
Always good for stupid questions.
Yes.
You're great for
I'm
stupid
good at
questions. Well, dude, this is a freaking awesome thing that you guys have built. Super pumped that we found out about it, and that I would urge anybody out there to go kind of dig into their website and kind of look into what they're doing, because I was pretty blown away by some of this too. And also, if you listen to the audio version will not do it justice. Go actually look at some of these things, and we'll try to link to some of that stuff in our show notes as well. But dude, more importantly, right now, it's time for our megaphone question. This is the question we ask everybody that comes on our show. And so, yeah, if we gave you a megaphone in around 60 seconds to say whatever you wanted to say to the construction industry, what would you want to leave with?
I think the biggest thing that we really press into, so you can sit and look at the technology, right, and say, hey, everyone needs to adopt this. This is the future. But really, like, the biggest thing we press into that I believe in is actually like how we treat people on a construction site, right? So we have this philosophy at Lauda Cube that we are the changers of environment, right? And that when we won't go on sites, no matter what the atmosphere is, no matter what the attitude is, no matter if there's happy people or angry people or people walking in fear, like that we actually have this incredible opportunity to just really love people well, and to really actually change the atmosphere of construction from the standpoint of removing the fear from a site, right? Because there's so much liability and fear of messing up, but really just bringing in, like I said, this new atmosphere of just compassion and how do we champion people well. And so that kind of carries through our culture at Lauda Cube. And I feel like, we have so many really cool testimonies or stories of that happening on construction sites where there was just a lot of anger and angst, and we just pressed into kindness, and just to see like just miracle things happen on these sites of like people coming into, reconciliation and friendship. So I would say that would be my megaphone, is just, how we treat people.
It's a good megaphone, man. That's
Preach, brother.
Preach it.
That's
Heck
awesome.
Yeah. All right, John. Thanks for joining us this week, man.
Thank you, guys.